So for those of you watching remotely now, print off the practical self-assessment. We're going to do that here in the as a practical, but then going to throw the results up on the screen after we electronically vote to see what the distribution is in the room here of visuals to auditories to kinesthetics. Establish what we are. We can also then help define what we can best do to get the best from our trading results. Okay, so for those of you watching remotely via video, please make sure that you print off your trading personality. Do go through these. Now, the way to go through these is in real rapid order. You mustn't spend too long thinking about this. It's got to be the immediate, instinctive answer that comes to mind. Quickly tick that one off, and then I want you to count up whether you are more a V, an A, or a K, and you'll see the scoring system that we've just gone through there on your practical notes. So the studio audience here are going to press A for V, B for A, and then C for K. Now remembering that we're all a mixture of everything really, but there'll be one which will obviously be a little higher than the other. The voting is coming now, so you'll see the spread we've got in the room. A is the visuals, B is the auditories, and K is the kinesthetics. So A, B, or C. Let's vote now, please. Pretty even spread. There we are. We've got a couple of visuals in the room. We've got a couple of auditories and lots of kinesthetics. So this is a real huggy crowd. Big, loving, huggy, touchy-feely crowd in here. That's great. Now, all kidding aside, let's go through what this really means. Really, the visuals, well, let's have a look at how this relates to trading and your trading personality. Visual people, if you might have wondered, I am a hypervisual, not just a visual. That means I make very fast decisions. Visual people tend to take a big picture view. They have short attention spans, and essentially they like to make a quick decision and get on with things. Now, beneficially, that means we can process information very quickly. We can get on with things. We can tend to rush into decisions. That might be a hindrance. We might tend to jump into a position too quickly, but at least we do get into things. We will make quick decisions. If we're trading short-term positions and we start mixing up our trading times with the larger picture, that can obviously confuse us, but we must make sure that we do thorough analysis before we even considering placing our trades. So the visuals, you've got to kind of slow them down a little bit when it comes to trading and certainly investing. Now the auditories, and for those people, there was a few auditories in the room. There's kind of an even divide between visuals and auditories in our studio audience here today. They like to do their research. They like to solicit feedback from people. They like to hear both externally, in other words, speaking to people and getting feedback, and they have conversations in their head all the time. You might easily be able to distinguish an auditory person by somebody who makes a sentence and then never finishes it. In other words, they're finishing the statement they've made in their own head, and you have to say to them, you have to say that out loud, otherwise I can't hear what you're saying, and because they obviously have the auditory statement going on. These people are excellent analysts, and auditory people tend to be very, very good analysts. They weigh up and make very good, balanced and logical decisions. They can be influenced by others because they often solicit feedback from many other people, and they can be subjected to analysis paralysis. It's the only thing to be really aware of. So as an auditory person, remember that the decision you're making is quite logical. Just go ahead and make the decision and get on with the trade is really the key decision. And the kinesthetics, then jumping over to them, they do take their time. It doesn't mean they are slow people. That would certainly be an incorrect judgment of kinesthetic people. They can be very fast people. But when it comes to making decisions, they will certainly take time to weigh up all decisions. And the kind of people that like to get really get their hand around things. They really kind of thrive off gut instincts. Remembering everybody is a combination of all three, really. But one might be slightly more expressed than the other. And if that's the case when we're trading, we want to make sure that wasted time and lost opportunity is the real thing to be aware of here. We do need to make decisions and get on with things. We've got plans and we've got goals, and we need to sort of, fit our trading activity to those, certainly if we want to hit our objectives. So if we rely on gut feelings too early on, that can lead to losses. Well, the great thing is with the kinesthetic, and there is a high number of kinesthetics in this room, when kinesthetics do practice strategy over time, those strategies then become quite instinctual, and then those people become tremendously effective. So where a kinesthetic might be slightly slower to start, in the long run, they can be highly, highly effective traders, as what they've then practiced then becomes instinctive. Key thing is they must practice, and that requires obviously taking action. If you look at what trading mastery is all about, and I'll leave this slide up here for a moment for you, we really start off not knowing what we don't know, and so we really, what we call unconscious incompetence. We really don't know what we don't know, and I'd kind of kind of equate that to, a baby. A baby doesn't know they need to learn to drive, for example, and therefore doesn't do anything about it. Then the child obviously is 17 and learns to drive, becomes conscious of their incompetence and therefore takes lessons, pretty much like new beginners learning to trade and learn some new skills. Then they've passed their test, they might have the P plates, that would be conscious competence, they can do it, but it's certainly not automatic yet. In other words, they still have to think mirror signal maneuver when they're driving. And then finally, when they get to unconscious competence, they jump in the car with lots of things going on all simultaneously, and they can easily drive without even thinking about it. The process has become very subconscious and therefore now becomes automatic or autoneural. Certainly with trading, we want to get our trading to that level of unconscious competence, and the only way we're going to get from stage 1 all the way through to stage 4 is simply by practicing, simply by taking action and practicing regularly. Okay, let's learn some more rules. Wins provide ego, even losses provide lessons. In the moment of accepting we're losing a trade, our brain starts firing wildly and we say, well, what's happening? The point to be aware of here is when our brain does start firing wildly, it's the answers to the questions we ask at that point in time which will ultimately define our outcome. If, for example, we start considering that a losing trade makes us a loser, then ultimately that's the answer to the question we've just answered, and that's the direction within which we will tend to move. The question we've got to ask, of course, with losing trades is, what can I learn from this? How can I turn this around? What else? What am I missing here? What am I doing consistently that leads me down this path? And that will ultimately lead us to answers which will start to build a completely different outcome. Let's look at the conditioning ourselves now for total self-confidence. I work with some of the UK's top hypnotic trainers, not to mention any names, but certainly with some tools that have really allowed myself to work with other traders and really take them to a completely different level in terms of their trading capability. When they say 85% of this resides in your mind, it really, really does. There are submodalities, there are states, in other words, there are components of our makeup which we can tap into at any time to experience a different emotional state. Now, when we're trading, it's very important that we can adopt a confident state of mind in all of our trading activities. Now, that can obviously be moved very easily if we have bad stimuli. In other words, if we lose some money on a trade. So what we've got to really figure out is how can we use the submodalities of a confident state of mind and then kind of lapse that over into our trading activity. In other words, most people, when they start the trading game, they're very intrepid, they're nervous. One losing trade and they start to really lose their nerve. What we need to remember at all times, we must never be shifted by what happens in our external world. We've always got to be like a rock. In other words, always be confident. The big difference between being cocky and confident, we've got to have a confident state of mind, but it's in that state we've got to be able to go to easily at will, and it's very, very achievable and very, very possible. All we've got to recognize is, well, what happens to us for us to become confident and then use those submodalities, in other words, those components that we would use in a confident state, and re-anchor those components in our minds for when we're trading. Sound complicated? Dead simple. Here we go. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to simply look at how we condition ourselves. We all have a recipe. We have a recipe for success. We also have a recipe for failure. For some of us, being confident, the act of being confident, is a totally different focus to somebody else. The quickest we want to know how to shift from where we are now into a confident state is it requires us going inside of ourselves. That kind of sounds like a bizarre thing, but going inside of ourselves and really figuring out what is it we focus on, what do we do with our physiology, on the recognition that our physiology and our mental capacity are interrelated. The mind and the body is completely related. Think healthy thoughts, live a healthy life. Think negative thoughts, as we know, live and die a stressful life. So how do we use that? Well, the confidence, there's a couple of steps to this. If we just jump to the slides here, just so the viewers watching remotely can see the steps. Step 1 is I want us to remember a time we felt 100% confident and not cocky. Now, we're going to do this in the studio audience here, and it's going to be a great example for you to do. I want everybody here in this room, and for those of you watching via video, what I'd like you to do is I want you to go back and remember a time you felt confident. What we're going to do is elicit the submodalities of your confident state. You do this one time, figure out what your recipe is for making your confident cake, and you'll be able to go back to it every time and use it whenever you need to. Could you apply this to other areas of your life? Yes or no?
Yes.
Absolutely. You ever need to anchor yourself to a confident state? Do it. Go immediately. Now, why do people constantly move around? Well, because constantly your psychology is trying to help you meet certain needs. A good example of that might be, we all have a need to feel certain, we have a need to feel significant, and we also have a need for some variety in our lives. Well, if we lose in an area, or if somebody makes us feel, for example, let's say somebody was to put you down and make you feel less significant, the submodality you might jump into could potentially be aggression. And the reason somebody might jump into aggression is purely it replaces that need that they were missing, which of course was significance. Now, there is another way that we could also get back to significance, which would be coming back with a smart remark. For example, Buddha says a great example, doesn't he, which is if you